Sit back, pour yourself a drink, smoke a cigarette or eat a carrot and enjoy the sight of identity politics ideologues being silly, which is inevitable due to the very nature of this philosophy. But first things first, what does identity politics mean? Identity politics, political activity or movements based on or catering to the cultural, ethnic, gender, racial, religious or social interests that characterize a group identity. You're part of or an outsider representing a group that was, is or feels oppressed? Speak out and raise both your own and public awareness, which is fine, as specific social issues may affect certain groups more than others. But sadly, this is the common identity politics mindset. I'm part of a group that was, is or feels oppressed, and if you're not, shut the fuck up about my problems. And when applied to reality, this is what it looks like.
The African American community knows that on any given day, some innocent person like Sandra Bland can get into a car, and then 3 days later, she's going to end up dead in jail.
Shut the fuck up, Bernie.
I challenge you both to help those who really need your assistance, the working people.
Shut the fuck up, Karl Marx. Let the working class speak for itself.
Despite all of its problems, Syndicate deserves to be acknowledged for its cast of characters, and particularly for its treatment of women.
You can have Ubisoft, Anita, and EA as well. Con art for con artists, I'm down with that.
Mesdames, je suis bien aise de vous voir chez moi. Que puis-je pour vous?
Votre Majesté, ces 4 femmes ont été choisies pour parler au nom des femmes de Paris. Tous les Parisiens sont soucieux de connaître l'accueil que Votre Majesté réserve à la Déclaration des droits
Shut
de
the
l'homme et aux
fuck
autres...
up, Robespierre.
Peut-être Sa Majesté préférait-elle entendre de la bouche même de ces femmes ce qui les amène ici.
Eh bien?
King Louis is the man.
Hey, Francesca, do you remember that time we were out and that totally random girl came up and just started touching your hair? And how annoying that was for you?
Actually, what I remember is that you interrupted me to explain why it was offensive.
Yeah. Oh, that was awesome.
I love this clip because it shows why we don't need to be afraid about identity politics and social justice ideologues becoming a force to be reckoned with. They are incapable of reaching the point where they are actually doing something. They are too busy arguing amongst themselves about such irrelevant details that they simply can't bring about any efficient political change.
So following the upload of the first video, Dan and Arielle both received a lot of backlash due to the fact that they were 2 cis people starting a conversation about trans issues.
How dare they?
Over the summer, I made a series of videos on ableism.
How dare you?
And as someone without any major physical or intellectual disabilities, even though it's not inherently wrong for me to start a discussion on that topic, it can get a little iffy.
I'm going to make the argument that there are some disabilities that may prevent an individual from being able to discuss ableism for him or herself. Plus, there is this thing called objectivity. Just because an individual is part of a specific group, that doesn't make this individual better suited to discuss issues to do with that group.
I want to talk specifically about what Arielle said about not being able to have a sexual relationship with a trans woman pre-op.
She's a lesbian. I presume she doesn't find penises sexually arousing. I, for one, am willing to accept that.
I think that when it comes to issues of attraction, yes, we cannot control who we are attracted to.
Right?
But I believe that there is a socio-political, cultural context often to that attraction.
Exactly. People choose to be gay because sexuality is a social construct. Behold Dr. John Money, the very man who came up with the concept of gender being a social construct. Money was one of the first scientists to study the psychology of sexual confusion and how the societal constructs of gender affect an individual. His work has both been celebrated for its innovation and criticized, particularly in regard to his involvement with the sex reassignment of David Reimer and his eventual suicide caused by Money's experiments. In 1966, a botched circumcision left 8-month-old David Reimer without a penis. Money persuaded the baby's parents that sex reassignment surgery would be in Reimer's best interest. At the age of 22 months, Bruce underwent an orchidectomy in which his testicles were surgically removed. He was reassigned to be raised as female and given the name Brenda. In 2000, David and his twin brother alleged that Money forced the twins to rehearse sexual acts involving thrusting movement, with David playing the bottom role. He said as a child, Money forced him to go down on all fours with his brother, Brian Reimer, up behind his butt with the crotch against his buttocks, and that Money forced David to have his legs spread with Brian on top. Money also forced the children to take their clothes off and engage in genital inspections. David committed suicide by shooting himself in the head at the age of 38. Money claimed that media response to the exposé was due to right-wing media bias and the anti-feminist movement. Now, where have we seen that before? And especially since. But yes, Dr. Money, as vile as he may have been, wasn't totally wrong. In theory, at least. Sexuality is determined by different factors. The strongest one by far seems to be an individual's natural disposition. But there are societal and legal pressures as well as personal experiences that can affect an individual's sexuality. And that sexuality can be oppressed successfully for a long time if need be. If you are living in Victorian England at least.
I feel like a city that's been under siege for 20 years. Suddenly the gates are thrown open and the citizens come pouring out to breathe the air and walk the fields and pluck the wildflowers. I feel relieved.
But sexual orientation isn't learned like some school subject, and it's not going to be unlearned. That's one of the reasons why excluding people because of whatever sexual orientation from whatever discussion is wrong. And the same applies to ethnicity or class. But back to the MTV News video.
That you want to speak up for me, but I don't really need you to explain racism for me. That's this thing called
Whitesplaining. It's when a white person explains why something is offensive to a person of color. It's considered super condescending, babe.
Thanks, but again, you don't need to tell me
how she feels, Brad.
I've dealt with the idea of only white people can be racist before. Visit my channel and check out the video if you care. What I find incredibly amusing is how these social justice / identity politics fanatics are fighting against each other. And what are they fighting about? The most valid claim to victimhood. And victimhood is no qualification for anything. And even if it was, what would a structure, let's say a government, look like if you base it on these notions of identity politics? The Secretary of Defense would have to be this guy. This guy would have to be the official who is responsible for people with disabilities within the Department of Labor, and you'd need an African American Attorney General as well as an Asian one with a Slavic background, etc., etc. And yes, this is a huge strawman, but not that far-fetched. Don't get me wrong, I agree that all those people deserve the right to speak out and be heard just like everybody else.
We don't read a lot from disabled authors or about disability topics in general.
As long as identity politics ideologues don't find this ultimate, mentally and physically disabled, minor adult, African, Asian plus American, atheist, Jew, Muslim, hetero, homo, bisexual, genderqueer, female, hermaphrodite, intellectual they can blindly follow because of his or its ultimate claim to victimhood, they are not going to get anywhere. I know that this video is a bit of an unstructured ramble, but that MTV video, well, triggered me. And I thought instead of pointing out the obvious, I could instead dive down the stream of consciousness. I'm the stream of thoughtful Contrarian. Feel free to rate, comment, share and subscribe no matter what you identify as. No, actually, do tell me what you identify as. YouTube analytics is so damn heteronormal. As long as identity politics ideologues don't find this ultimate mentally and physically disabled minor adult African Asian plus American female hermaphrodite. As long as identity politics ideologues don't find this ultimate mentally and physically disabled minor adult African Asian plus American atheist Christ Jew Muslim hetero bisexual gender queer female hermaphrodite intellectual they can blindly follow because of his or its ultimate claim to victimhood, they are not going to get